Today we're looking at the Durston Gear Xmid. The one person that I have here weighs in at 28 ounces. It retails for $240. It's made of sil poly, which is slightly heavier, slightly less durable than sil nylon, which a lot of trekking pole style tents like this are made out of. But polyester doesn't absorb water like nylon, so this tent shouldn't suffer from any sagging when wet. And that doesn't only apply to rain. Dew, fog, changes in humidity, even condensation from your breath can cause a tent to wet out. This has been by far the most requested product that you guys wanted me to look at. I found a good deal on it. I don't need this at all. I did not need this tent, but I got it for you guys, you know. I did it for you. I'm gonna use it, but it's yours. How completely unselfish of me. Pros, cons, my initial impressions of this tent, and is it worth all the hype that it gets? Also, have you ever heard of the tarp tent Stratospire? Dumb name, but who copied who? I prefer sil poly over sil nylon. Saggy tents just can be really annoying. It's got a simple 4-stake pitch. That's all you need to set this tent up. You're gonna need an extra 2 though. However, if you want to keep half of the vestibule open. On the topic of vestibules, this thing has huge vestibule space. The Xmid has something I've never seen before on a tent, a waterproof zipper or a water resistant zipper. Normal tents have a flap over this section, so sometimes that can get caught when you're zipping up and down. I will say it's a little bit harder to open. The extra rubber material on there, it just makes it a little bit more effort to zip up and down, but I like the idea of it. I'm really a big fan of the vents in this tent. There's one on both sides, which is really important for proper ventilation to get that air in and out, get that cross breeze going. It uses a carbon fiber or a plastic pole, it seems right there, to Velcro it open. If you don't want it open, there's Velcro. You can seal that baby shut, but I normally don't do that. I just leave them things open. Let that baby vent. This thing has really steep walls, which is really good for rain and snow runoff. And something that's really cool about this is it only weighs 2 pounds. That's light in my mind for any shelter, especially for just one man. The cons. But first, a little moment to introduce you to my new cameraman and the sponsor of today's video. The Hover X1 pocket-sized self-flying drone. All right, now I'm using the audio from this. It actually can connect through my phone, and it has noise reduction, so you don't hear the whining of it. Now, I've had a lot of drone companies reach out to me, and I'm really not interested in them because I just don't want to bring a big, heavy drone, and I don't want to have another hobby. I just don't need to get into it, nor do I want to carry a remote. The best thing about it, it self-flies. With one click of a button, it'll take off from your palm, and to return, just hold out your palm underneath it and it'll just land right on it. This thing is so easy to use. You don't need a remote. It completely self-flies. It's got a button to switch the modes right on top. It's one-click activation. I can also fly it manually through the app, which is kind of hard on a phone, but it does work. This thing appeals to me because it's so small. Like, this is it. I can literally put this in my pocket. I'm not going to take a drone with a controller if I just want a couple cool shots, and this thing covers that. The Hover X1 has over 5 modes: hover, follow, orbit, zoom out, bird's eye. You can also use the app to change a lot of the flight parameters, like the distance, the duration of flight, and the flight angle. They're constantly adding new features like snapshots, so I can let it go up and it'll just take a picture of me. Also a dolly mode that allows me to actually walk towards it and it will actually back up and stay away from me. There are a few things about this that I think could be a little bit better. The camera quality isn't amazing. You can't really compare it to my $3,000 setup you're looking through right now, but it is 1080p. It records at 30 or 60 frames per second. Also, the battery life, it doesn't last long. I'd say maybe 10 minutes. I think it said it can do like 20 different flight patterns. However, you can get it with 2 batteries, and they actually charge pretty quick, I found. So the price, that's the other thing that's a little steep, I think. You can get it around $350 or I think it's $399 right now with the 2 batteries. So that's not terrible, but you can get fully functioning drones for around that price. But does this apply to you more? Like I said, I've always thought drones are awesome, but I don't want one. I don't have to really learn how to fly it. I don't really have to worry about bringing any extra stuff, and 4 ounces right in my backpack. I'm going to put a link down below for the Hover Air X1. You can use promo code BRYCE15 to enjoy $15 off of your purchase. Another thing it does is it can actually shoot vertical video for people that are shooting shorts on Instagram or TikTok. This thing is perfect. Big shout out to Hover for sponsoring this video and making this purchase possible. Because I wouldn't have bought it. I don't want it. Thing sucks. Alright, so the cons. Number one, it's easy to set up, I'll give it that. The internet tent though, it's a little goofy to orientation. You kind of have to realize which end of the tent you have. No wait, can it go? I don't know. It's a little bit confusing at first when you're just setting it up because you got a square spot, it's a square tent, but you're going to be in there at an angle. You got to kind of think about which way your body is going to be laying, especially if you're setting up on a hill, because that's when that really matters. So back on the topic of walls, they're all about the same 50-ish degree angle. So there's really not a great way to position it at the wind. I suppose you would want the head and foot end because it's a little bit skinnier rather than the sides, which is just going to take a huge blow if the wind's hitting you from that angle. A lot of tents have a steep side and then a lower side, which might not deflect snow as much. They are going to maybe perform better in wind at certain angles, but I just know I have other tents that I think would stand up to high winds better than this. And I could be completely wrong. One thing that's really weird about this are the line locks. I don't know why, but the string is ran through them backwards. I don't know if that's just a manufacturing flaw with my tent, but it almost makes these like unusable. So I'm definitely gonna untie these knots and run them through the other way so they're like every other tent that I own. I hope that's not the quality that we come to expect from Durston gear. I like organization and pockets on the inside of tents. I know it's not ultralight and you don't really need it, but I like to have a place to put my phone, my headlamp, a chapstick, anything that I might want to access quickly without looking. This actually doesn't have any pockets on the inside, which I wasn't expecting. I know the two-person version of this, I think it's got pockets up top, but there's really nothing on this one. I retract my previous statement. It does have pockets. I don't know why I didn't see these. You gotta come in. I was thinking you'd go through the front. So side there, and there is one over here. They are small, but they're usable. That makes me like this a whole lot better. Aesthetically, this thing is kind of goofy. Sorry, I'm making a bunch of noises on this pad. By the way, this is a 25-inch wide pad. Not a lot of room in here, but I expected that with a one-man shelter. It's ample. It's good lengthwise, widthwise. It's nothing I haven't seen before. But aesthetically, I don't mind that you sleep at an angle in this. I don't really like the weird head end and foot end. Your bug net goes at a weird angle. It doesn't affect anything. I promise you this is just completely nitpicking. Just one of my initial impressions is it's goofy. I feel like it's whenever you're really trying to come up with something like they got this great new tent design. It's sweet, but you know, something just isn't working out. And instead of figuring it out, they're just like, it's good enough. Just send it. I don't know, it's just a little goofy to me. It could be worse though. It could be yellow, like the tiger wall. It's actually a pretty good looking tent. Another thing I'm not a big fan of in this is the headroom. So I kind of was expecting more. Maybe the two-person isn't as bad. I don't know, I thought I'd have more left to right. You got the pole here and the pole here, so along this ridge I got a lot of room, but my head's in the net there, my head's in the net here. Now granted, I am far away from the fly, so I've always been a fan of double wall tents, so this is definitely going to be a very dry shelter. But I just wish it somehow had a little bit more sit-up room in here. All right, couple more things I don't like on this. It doesn't have dual zippers on the fly. I really wish it did. I like to be able to close my tent fly and just open the top zipper so I can get, you know, a good bit more ventilation, and especially tied in with the good vents it has on the side. That would be 4 areas of ventilation that you could have with still pretty much having all your privacy and having your doors closed. Okay, last thing I'm gonna hate on this is for having such small living space on the inside, the footprint is gigantic. It's kind of goofy. Like, I feel like I could almost sleep in the vestibules. This thing is really generous on vestibule size. I mean, one other thing I say I could dislike on it is the fact that it has 2 doors, 2 vestibules. I've never wanted an extra door. You know, one-man shelter, what do you need 2 vestibules for? However, it makes setting up a breeze, so you don't have to crawl under the other side. Like, you can open up both sides to get the poles in. And also, it's just the nature of the beast on this one. If you were to get rid of the big vestibule on either side, you're pretty much gonna have to redesign the entire shelter. So this thing really shines as a 2-person shelter. 1 person, definitely not bad at all. A little overkill. One thing I really love with this is when you have no bug net on the inside. So like I say, the living space in here with the bug net, it's not great, but man, for winter camping, which is the only time I go bug net less, this thing's a palace. It really is. You get all that extra space from the vestibules. So I actually cannot wait to use this in the winter. There's definitely a place for this tent. Very thought out design. There's no doubt about that. And for a minimalist shelter, this thing is really loaded. In a second, I'm going to get into who copied whose design for this tent. But right now, what is my initial takeaway from this? I came into this experience not really wanting one of these. I don't want to say I hated on them, but I'm skeptic about this design. And I figured I would come out, put it up, and be like, okay, everybody's right. Like, this thing is awesome. I don't really feel that way. I am impressed by a few things that wasn't expected, like the ease of setup is really nice. I love being able to do the fly first pitch so you can keep your bug net and everything dry. There's good features on it, like the magnetic toggles that hold up the doors. Those are cool. It seems storm-worthy. It seems like everything I would want in a tent, except I just thought with all the hype, I was going to be a little bit more blown away. I'm really not. The living space in it is nothing special for how big it is. You think you should get a little bit more living space in there, but as a 2-person design, that tent is definitely going to be way better than this as far as I'm concerned. So who copied who on designing this Xmid style shelter? Like many, I was under the impression that Dan Durston was the first one to came up with the staggered pole design, the goofy, I don't know what it is. I thought he like originated that, and I came to find out that Tarp Tent has had the Stratospire. I gotta think about that every time I say it. I want to say Stratosphere or Stratospire. Stratospire. Dumb name. But it is a really similar pole structure. Now this, if you look from a bird's eye view, is actually a square. That, I'm just gonna say the Tarp Tent. It is not a square. It's really kind of hexagon. It's just different in a lot of ways. The pole structure is similar, and what I think happened is Dan basically used that, which is actually true because I stumbled on an article that Dan wrote a review, a really good review on. He really seemed to like that tent in 2015. So he actually, I think he claimed to have 200 nights in the Tarp Tent. And it seemed like he just took from that what he liked and added on to that. I don't consider that to be stealing. There's only so much out there, you know, like you're not going to come up with a completely new design. Like, look how many single pole shelters there are that pretty much look the exact same. So I think we're going to see a lot more variations on this pole structure in upcoming years, especially for how much people rant and rave about this. I'd really like to get my hands on one of those tarp tents. Send me one. Check out the Xmid and other gear I use with the links down below, as well as the Hover Air X1 drone. That's gonna do it. Make sure you guys subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you on the next one.